Well, good morning, everyone. The autumn equinox brings the arrival of the season of fall, traditionally seen as a period of changes leading up to the dark of winter. Christopher Hill, the author, points out and suggests that the dynamics of the fall of the year have the sweep of a great symphony or an epic poem. What spiritual lessons and practices are suggested by the arrival of autumn? Today I'd like to discuss 3 areas for your contemplation, 3 areas of meditation for you to bring into the fall season. Number 1, balancing darkness with light. Balancing darkness with light. On the autumn equinox, day and night are exactly equal. This signals the need to balance light and dark within us. Far too often, we fear the dark or resist the darkness and adore the light. In my life, I am beginning to acknowledge that it is just as natural to feel insecure, scared, anxious, as it is natural to feel excited, peaceful, and happy. I'm even on my way to embracing all of these states equally and not trying to change any of them, especially the more difficult or the darker emotions. Let's say, for example, sadness or anxiety, frustration or anger. I am no longer trying to change or force them into being something they're not. Rather, it is a process of creating space around the arisal, the coming and going of all of these feelings, of these emotions, of these different sensations. By creating space around them, the realization that they are not who I am, because they come and go. I have a body, but I am not my body. I have feelings and emotions. I am not my feelings and emotions. I have thoughts, but I am not my thoughts. I am the awareness of the coming and going of this phenomena. So as I create space and allow them to come in, the realization is that they all have gifts to bring. They all have something to teach. And the more I embrace them and can actually bring love to them, oh, right now I'm feeling sadness. Hello, sadness. I bring sadness into my world. What is it has to teach me? Oh, I'm feeling frustration. What is it that this frustration is bringing for me? Where do I see it in the body? What's its size, shape, its color? Investigate, embrace, include. It is this contrast, happiness, sadness, when we realize that everything is a cycle, like the seasons. Everything is a cycle. And embracing them, I am able to become in tune with these cycles. Yes, I want the sadness to go away sooner. That kind of resistance only perpetuates, magnifies that. When I embrace and allow and create space for these to come and go, then they do what they need to do as they need to do it. It is this contrast that is the greatest teacher. We only know light because of darkness. The art gallery in the hallway next to us is barren. Or is it? Only a few days ago, it was filled with art and paintings. And it is this contrast that we find and embrace the beauty because it is impermanent. It is this contrast that helps us realize our true nature. Eckhart Tolle lets us know that it is through contrast that we wake up, because we know mortality, because something in us is immortal. Our Buddha nature, our Christ nature, our light. When we spend all of our time identified with the form, or identified with sadness or frustration, or identified with happiness, it is not in balance. It is out of balance. It is creating space and allowing for all of these to arise and fall, that we realize when we are resisting any of them or clinging to the others, that we realize that they are not who we are. So the first teaching, the first contemplation to take into fall with you is balancing darkness with light. There is a great Buddhist story about Zen master Tokusan. And when he was still a student, he goes to his teacher. His teacher was Ryutan, and he arrives before sundown, and they sit down to tea, and they spend a large part of the evening talking about the Dharma, talking about Zen. And as the time drew near for Tokusan to leave, he goes to the door and realizes how dark it is outside. And he says, "Master, it is completely dark outside." So his master says, "Here, why not take this?" And he hands him a lantern. And just as Tokusan takes the lantern, his master blows out the candle. The teaching here, as Gary Thorpe interprets it, is that sometimes there is no remedy for our situation than to begin from a point of absolute darkness. Turning off a television, turning off a computer screen, like blowing out the light of a lantern. Both are abrupt and transition-making, and can leave us in a different world, a world of darkness. And in darkness, we are always on our own. And in darkness, we are able to access the gifts of solitude. The second contemplation to take into the autumn time is that of letting go. Always a more literal teaching in the fall, as the trees let go of their leaves. As the leaves flutter to the ground in the fall, we are reminded that nature's cycles are mirrored in our own lives. Autumn is a time for letting go and releasing things that may have been a burden, or things that no longer serve us, or things that are perhaps in some way an obstacle. All traditions pay tribute to such acts of relinquishment. Fall is a good time to practice getting out of the way and letting our Buddha nature take charge of our lives. As many of you know, my wife and I are moving from Kansas to Missouri. I have lived in that home for over 16 years. And in moving from Kansas to Missouri, we are taking a space that is much smaller. And I have made a conscious decision to let go of really well over 75 to 80% of the things that I have accumulated over the 16 years at this house. That is a lot of stuff. And in doing this, in releasing this, I have certainly been exposed to the full range of emotions that comes with this kind of a move, with this kind of a purging. Everything from doubt, whether or not this is really the right thing to do, nostalgia, sadness, anger, frustration, all have visited. It's been interesting because even in the pricing of items, as we have held an estate sale this past week, the machinations of the mind over what something is worth, what I can get out of it. It's like, are you kidding? This dish set is worth $200 and you want $20? Right? Or you're offering $20? The machinations. And the fascinating part of the practice has been observing the rapid succession of these emotions and these feelings as they arise and fall. Because it has been so rapid, it has helped me to be able to see, to actually know and embody. These are not who I am. It can't be. Because they've come so fast, they rise and fall so quickly and are so subject to the whims and the situation of the outside world. It is my awareness of these things as they come and go. That is who I am. When I am identified with my Buddha nature, then stuff arises and falls. I can price something at whatever I feels like without the machinations, the frustration, the agonizing over I'm giving this thing away, or I charge too much and it never moves. It doesn't matter. I simply, some price comes out of my mouth and they accept it or they don't, and it leaves or it stays. And there is a peace, there is an equanimity with the process. It's not that I don't feel the anger and the sadness and the frustration and the nostalgia. I do, 100%. But I'm not caught up in them. I'm not identifying with them. They are not who I am. I am not tossed about on the ups and downs of the worldly realm. I can be present with the emotions, present in the moment. I can be in the world but not of it. I can maintain a certain degree. And in the Christian tradition, they talk about tithing 10%. This parallels with the Buddhist tradition of practice without ceasing, pray without ceasing. All these teachings are one. It's keeping a little bit of awareness on your presence. Keeping a little bit, 10%, as Eckhart Tolle says, of your awareness on what's going on inside the form. Being present with your breath as I barter, as I negotiate, as I deal. And as I let things go, as with all situations, as with all estate sales and garage sales, comes the moment of reckoning. Yes, that moment when the sale is over, and at this point, there's things I'm kicking to the curb. Whew, here comes a deep practice. And now I simply set stuff out to the elements, to the weather, to the rain, for the garbage collector to pick up. Perfectly good things, perfectly absolute expressions of 16 years or even 45 years of living. That's Victor out there on the curb. photographs, paintings, gift cards from people who are long gone. And I can feel that in some way it feels like I'm dishonoring them, or I feel that I'm abandoning this card that a student gave me 25 years ago. I feel it. But also with the space around that is the knowing that I do not have to cry that it is over. I can smile that it happened. The memory and the life is contained within this form, not some little piece of paper out there sitting on the curb. It's in here. And with that space around all of this, what comes out on the other side is joy. Because what happened was, I was able to take 2 boxes of photographs, statues, chalices, and posters of 15 years of performing at the Kansas City Renaissance Festival, and give it back to the Renaissance Festival for their archives. The joy that arose in sharing this with people who maybe this is their first year and they look back, or people who've been there for 30 years and go, oh, I remember that. 2 boxes of photographs, hats, chaps, belt buckles of my father, who was a rodeo star. Both my grandfathers were rodeo stars. If you go out to the legends, one of those big copper medallions in the sidewalk belongs to Gerald Roberts, world champion rodeo star. That's my grandfather. I gave all of these to the Rodeo Historical Society, where they can be shared with the world. Not shared with the spiders and the bugs in my basement. Joy is arising from the sheer sharing and generosity and the depth of giving. Books to the library, CDs, DVDs to the library, to Goodwill. And then came the moment, all the stuff that I put on the curb, tons of tubs and boxes, furniture, all kinds of things. The neighborhood began coming out of their caves, and the children, the laughter and the joy of scavenging and finding the most interesting things to them, it was a treasure trove. And as I drove away last night, late at night, they were still out there with flashlights, playing on the furniture, finding all kinds of things. Joy arose. And the third teaching, the third contemplation for autumn is that of acknowledging impermanence. A core teaching in the Buddhist practice, acknowledging impermanence. Autumn reminds us of the impermanence of everything. Everything we have experienced, the budding of life in spring and the flowering of summer, and now the leaves and the flowers close up and fall. The bare branches remind us of the fleeting nature of all things. Not a dark teaching, not when you embody it and realize it. When this is truly known, it is liberating. I like to relate the story of the Tibetan masters who every night before bed would turn their teacups over as an acknowledgement and a reminder that life was impermanent. And then when they awoke each morning, they would take their teacups, turn them over with the happy thought that I'm still here. This simple gesture is a wonderful reminder to celebrate each and every moment of each and every day. That's the gift of acknowledging impermanence. It brings incredible presence to life. Cynthia Keenan, in her book, Awakened Mind, Open Heart, shares this teaching. When you are brave and have an open heart, you have affection for this world, that sunlight and these clouds, this human being, this experience right here, and you experience them all nakedly. And when it touches your heart, you realize this world is very fleeting. And so it is perfect to say, hello means goodbye. And so on a relative level, letting go, I use the example of moving and releasing and relinquishing, giving back to the world and the depth of that teaching. But I am also, of course, aware that as autumn arrives and we work with impermanence and we work with letting go, that some of you may be dealing with the loss of pets, the loss of loved ones, the loss of friends, the loss of relationships. And so I want to leave you with this poem by Jane Hirschfeld called Ripeness. Ripeness is what falls away with ease. Not only the heavy apple, the pear, but also the dried brown strands of autumn iris from their core. To let your body love this world that gave itself to your care in all of its ripeness with ease, and will take itself from you in equal ripeness and ease, is also harvest. And however sharply you are tested, this sorrow, that great love, it too will leave on that clean knife.